Hello again, everyone. We are so glad you're here today. I'm Kate with the Creative Coast. Today is Thursday, December 7th, and our featured lunchtime presenter is Dr. Davana Pilczuk, or we're going to call her Dr. D. We are more than glad to welcome her back. She previously spoke at a lunchtime topic. I think it was in the spring or early summer. It was on the 2 o'clock dip and why we tend to lose energy and get tired around that time of the day and how to fix that and combat that. Today, Dr. D will be sharing how smartphones, cable news, and peppermint lattes have kidnapped our brains. We'll cover how the brain responds to pleasure and threat and why we are so addicted to our devices, cable news, and seasonal treats from our favorite coffee shops. By understanding why we are addicted to these things or can't stop checking email at 11 p.m. each night, we can actually start to change our stressful behaviors to healthier ones. Dr. D is a multi-award-winning kinesiologist who specializes in human performance. She is a columnist for the Savannah Morning News and has authored numerous journal and magazine articles. She's a highly sought-after international speaker and consultant for Fortune 500 companies and has been featured in the Smithsonian Magazine and on several TV and radio morning shows. We are very lucky to have her here today. So thank you so much. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I think this is is this right, Caitlin? The last one of these lunches until next year?
Last one of the year.
All right. Yeah. Last one. Okay. 2 weeks left in 2020. Well, thank you guys for calling in today. So I go by Dr. D, makes it easier. I have a hard last name. But I am a performance specialist. So I actually started out in the sports world where I used to work with athletes of all kinds, from high school to collegiate to elite level athletes. And our goal was always, as kinesiologists, how do you get people to perform better? How do you get them through diet, through sleep, through training regimes, through stress management, imagery, sports psychology? How do you get them to be at their best? And so now, after many of years in the corporate world, running ergonomics programs, wellness programs, and human performance programs, I like to talk on the topic really of stress, because that's really the key to performing well, is how well do you handle stress? And so there's good stress, like when you go out and you exercise and you go to the gym, you're pushing your body to its limits, but that's a good thing. But then there's the negative stress, which is more what we've been going through for the last 10 months with COVID and everything else that's come with it. And so sometimes those negative stressors can actually be good, because those are the times that we grow. But sometimes when they're chronic and unrelenting and we just don't see a way out to get better, it wears us down. And so I wanted to talk today, not just on things that you probably associate with stress, like meditation or yoga or deep breathing, which are all good, but I want to show you a little bit more about your brain today and why your brain is tending to want to go out when you get excited and you heard about the peppermint mocha latte coming back out at Starbucks, or when your cell phone's always going off and you see it and you're like, check in. And I know you guys all have your phones next to you and you're looking and you're checking for your text messages, right? Why are we doing those things? Because often the very things that we do to make ourselves feel happy and to feel better are the things that are contributing to our stress. And so, let's see if I can move this. So right now, your brain is not okay. We are under, like I said, 10 months of unrelenting stress. And so these are two graphs looking at anxiety and depression, and then actual what we're doing to help ourselves with that. And this data is old, basically. This is back from like July, May timeframe. So on the left, we are looking at the percentage of adults in the US that are showing signs of anxiety and depression. So the orange is actually last year, 2019. So people who were having symptoms of anxiety was about 8% of the population. For depression, it was about 6%. For a combination of the two, it was about 11%. This year, and that's as of May, 28% are showing clinical signs of anxiety, 24% for depression, and 33.9%, so almost 34% are showing signs of the two. Now, that was back in May. I guarantee you these numbers are even higher. And I recently saw data that showed from a world standpoint that over 30% of the world is also suffering with these same things. And so what do? We try to feel better. And so the graph on the right is showing the things that we're doing to medicate ourselves to get through this stuff. And so on the left, you see the anti-anxiety medications. That's like your Xanaxes. 34% of us are taking that stuff now. Antidepressants, we're looking at, SSRIs and ways to help us feel better there. And then finally, the anti-insomnia, which is your trazodones, your Ambiens, we're taking more of that. So the big picture is we are struggling. Our bodies and our minds are wearing down from this chronic stress. And so how do we get ourselves through this? So before I answer that question, I need you to understand what's actually going on in your brain. And so right now you're looking at a picture of the brain. It's a side view. And so the circle in front over here, I'll use my cursor, is the forehead area right here. It's the prefrontal cortex, okay? And this is kind of like you're going down your neck here. And so the fight or flight response, which is the stress response, occurs in what's called the limbic system. Now, the limbic system is simply the system that regulates emotion and memory. And so it's not surprising that the things that were highly emotional and upsetting to us in life, we remember with profound detail. And so inside that system here, you see all these little structures are lit up in green. We've got the hippocampus, the thalamus, the hypothalamus, and the amygdala. You don't need to know what all these are, but basically what they're doing is they're taking in information from the outside world. They're taking in information from your inside world, your heart rate, your respiration rates, all that kind of thing. And they bring that together to the brain to then work with the hippocampus, which is like your stenographer. They just report the facts. It keeps track like a filing cabinet of all the facts and things that have gone on. But the big one is the amygdala. That's like your fire alarm, your smoke detector in your house. And that thing goes off with loudness when it detects smoke. And so whether your house is on fire and that smoke detector goes off, or if it just has a little, your toaster smoking just a little bit and it still goes off and it drives you nuts because you're like, there's no fire, but it's still going off. That's the amygdala. And so we have been living in a world that has been triggering this to go off, to go off, to go off. Even at low levels, we're feeling it. But the other part of your brain that we're not using as much is the smart part. It's in the front, called the prefrontal cortex, okay? And that's the part that says, slow down. Let's be rational here. Let's think this through. Let's make some better decisions. But that's the smart part of the brain. And while your brain is amazingly good and just incredibly smart, like the amygdala here, it's always looking for threat. It's always looking for danger. Why? Because it wants to keep you alive. And that's actually the brain's number one function, is to make sure you stay alive. So any indication that something's off, your heart rate's going up, or your boss comes in and they have that look and you get that hot flash, that's the amygdala alerting the brain of, oh, danger, danger. But it's not real smart. And just like detecting that little smoke coming from the toaster, it still goes off and freaks out. And that's why we need to use this part a little bit more. All right, so that's your crash course on the stress response in the brain. And if you feel like Bill the Cat, y'all remember that cartoon from Bloom County? That's how we're probably feeling right now, at least our brains are. So I want to share with you guys now two theories and basically understanding how the brain works and why we are so drawn to detecting threat, wanting pleasure, and noticing the novel things in life. And so this is actually a theory that came out of the Mayo Clinic looking at how do we reduce stress? And they have a great book. You can contact me later if you want to know what it is. But they have a whole program on resiliency and stress management. And so basically the theory they came up with was this. The brain responds to three things. To these three things in this order. The first is threat. Again, remember I told you the brain's main function is to keep us alive, to keep us safe. And so it's always out there looking and detecting and scanning for any signs of threat. That will always trump everything else. Then next is pleasure. The brain loves pleasure. It likes physical pleasure. It likes to laugh. It likes to hear things. It likes to taste things that are pleasurable. So it's constantly seeking out ways to feel happy. And then finally, novelty. It loves new, unique, unusual things. And this is why when you see a good-looking person that you've never seen before walk by, you're drawn to looking. Or if you see a car accident on the road, you're driving down and then you're like, and you have to look. That's novelty, because it's not usual. It's the unusual. And so your brain is drawn to that. But with that pleasure and with that novelty, threat always trumps both of those. So hang on to that, because I'm going to show you now another theory. Now, this is one that maybe you learned in high school or in college in a basic psych class, but this is the Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. And basically what this says is that we have a level of needs that have to be met in order for us to reach right here, the pinnacle of who we were meant to be the president, to be, all that you could be, to really become who you were meant to be on this planet. The theory is you cannot reach that point unless your most basic needs at the bottom have been met. And so these bottom needs, I call them survival needs. That's your basic food, water, shelter, safety. I need a home. I need a job. I need to feel safe that when I go out at night, I'm not going to be attacked or robbed or mugged. I need to feel that I'm okay. So when I go to the grocery store, I'm not going to get sick, or I'm not going to die or bring something home to my family that will kill them. I'm not going to lose my property. I'm not going to lose my stuff, my resources. And so this is the part that has been under heavy threat for the last year. And this is why, if you have struggled to find focus and meaning and kind of happiness in your life, and you're like, man, I'm okay. I haven't got COVID. I didn't lose my job, but I just don't feel like I'm producing like I used to. Well, it's because your brain knows this is going on. And so the ability to have closer relationships, to have recognition, status, self-esteem, that's harder to achieve when these basics here are not being met. And so think about what we've been faced with throughout this whole year of unrest, of horrible images of how we've been treating one another, of things that are threatening us and letting us know that we're going to lose our jobs, or we got a job, but we could lose that one, or maybe they'll cut my pay, they'll cut my hours. And then, oh no, what if we start running out of toilet paper again? I actually went to Publix last week and they were out of napkins. And I had that just instantaneous, oh no, is this happening again feeling? And, and I thought, no, relax, Davana, this is silly. We have napkins, but I felt like I did in March, of the fear of, oh God, we're running out of resources again. Am I going to get sick? Are my kids going to bring it home from school, right? Am I going to get my mom sick? Am I going to get kicked out of my house? Can we make the mortgage payment? Can we make the rent? And then if we can't, can we feed our families? And if you notice, these images are lining up with these words down here of safety, employment, resources, shelter, food. Our basic needs have been threatened. Oh, and by the way, I think we've had like 90 some hurricanes this year and fires all over the place. So our, again, basic needs for home and shelter have been attacked. So even if you have not personally experienced any real profound effects from COVID, you have been surrounded by it, and your friends and loved ones have been affected by it. So what do? Well, we try to find happy things in life to get us to feel good, because we don't like feeling bad. We don't like to be in threat mode. So the brain goes, I want to feel happy. I want to feel pleasure. And so it starts to try and find things that will do that. And so I don't know about you guys, but I recently visited my mom, and I don't go to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts a whole lot, neither does she. But we were like, one night we said, oh, what if we go out tonight and we'll get some eggnog lattes, and ooh, and so we fell for the the advertising, and we went out and we got lattes and a pumpkin spice latte, and then the next night we went out and got a peppermint frappuccino, and we felt so good driving around in the car eating our terrible high calorie foods that tasted so good, but they are novel. right? There's a reason why they put them out only towards the end of the year, because they know you want them then and you will buy them. And then the second thing is the cell phones. Does anybody have kids? And let's see if maybe in the chat box, you guys can see it here. Do any of you guys have kids that when you pick them up or you talk to them, this is what they look like? I know I do. Anybody have any can relate to this? That they're literally sitting to be picked up, or when you're trying to have a conversation with them, this is them. They're on their phones. Or your spouse, you're having a conversation with them and they're on their phones. So let me see your chats. Yes, definitely. So, and we do it too. I feel terrible. Sometimes I'm looking and my daughter comes in to talk to me and I'm like, yeah. Oh, what happened in school today? Oh, hang on, I got a tweet. Oh, and so we're drawn to these things, right? And we're missing out in that moment of life because we're so addicted to these things. And you know this, but we have to remind you, they design these things to be addictive, just like video games, but you've got TikTok, you've got FaceTime, you've got Twitter, you've got, I've been playing Among Us. That thing's fun. My son likes to play. We're in separate rooms and we're playing. It's crazy, but we've got all this stuff. And by the way, my kids, they let me know that FaceTime is for old people. So if you do FaceTime, you're apparently checked out. You're not with the times. So that was new to me, but it's novel. Remember, the brain likes novelty. And so that's why these apps are changing every year or two. And we've got a new this and a new that. And you're constantly like, ooh, getting excited. And you're getting excited just like you do with these lattes. And you get mad when they give you that latte and it doesn't have, or the Frappuccino, and it doesn't have the whipped cream and the sprinkles on it. Does anybody get like, ugh? Because you just get so excited about it, right? And the reason why you're getting excitement is because of dopamine. And so dopamine is actually the drug of novelty. We hear it often mentioned about pleasure. It's that pleasure dopamine. You get high from, oh, I got my Starbucks latte. I'm all excited. I'm drinking it. Bam, you get a hit of dopamine, right? You get a text message. You check it. And, oh, you had a little funny emoji. You laugh. You get dopamine. Dopamine's actually connected to novelty. And although it makes you feel good, dopamine occurs when things are new or different, or when we've achieved a goal. And so once that moment has passed, that hit of dopamine kind of drops. And so if every day you went to get that latte, every day, that feeling of euphoria would start to kind of like not be as impactful. So what do? We get an extra shot of espresso or more sprinkles, or we try something different to get that dopamine hit again. But it's not a long-lasting thing, okay? And those lovely things that taste good, and I am a Cheetos addict. I have to admit that. I have to watch TV and I'm just crunching on Cheetos. I love them. I have to work on that. But it comes with a price of calories. So if you want to lose weight, you get diabetes, you've got to be aware of that. That's a lot of calories that you're taking in from that little latte and that little bag of Cheetos. It's a big deal. So that's your pleasure and that's your threat. Okay. I'm sorry, and that's your novelty. But now we got to talk about threat, because this is the big one. And I'm not surprised that we have been shocked by what's going on out in the news and stuff, because we are drawn to threat. And the news stations know that. Media knows that. They know that shock and awe sells. And so if you find yourself consuming this type of cable news, and it's not just Fox News, it's everywhere, but you're consuming it, it's because that brain of yours is looking for signs of threat all the time. So let me go back and review that. Remember this Maslow's hierarchy here, when we feel threatened, right? It's because of these things here. Our employment is at risk. COVID is coming to get you. We've got food lines. Oh no, you could be next. Oh my gosh, let's look at the numbers again. I mean, we just looked at them 15 minutes ago, but let's see how many more people have died. And it's just constantly scaring you. And these news stations know that. And they live here and they report here. Okay. And they keep your attention because you were drawn to trying to fix and analyze and predict and get out of threat mode. And there's a reason why you're not so drawn to wanting to watch the Hallmark Channel or Sesame Street, because they're at a higher level. They're not talking about threatening things and scary things. It's more about bonding and love and connection, right? And if you really want to feel great, you go out and buy a Lexus, because that's status and recognition, okay? But these guys aren't dumb. They know where to get you, and they know that they're getting that brain there fired up when you watch. Okay, so let's do in the chat box again. Look on the left side of these faces. You don't need to name names, but do any of these faces make you go, oh, I can't stand that person? Oh. So, all right, let's see if we get some, just need some yeses or nos. Let's see, I got my chat. Anybody? Yes, blood pressure just went up. Yes. Yeah, I have a few I look at and I'm like, oh, I can't. I've tried, and 10 minutes later, I'm like, I got to turn this off. This is killing me. Yeah, so we have visceral responses because we have connected these individuals, these stations, with threat. They're threatening our values, our safety, what we represent. And it's hitting again, remember that middle of the brain, and we're not using this part. Now look at the right side of the screen. Is anybody, and when I put this together, I was thinking about these, and I do listen to these stations too, but if I was to describe them, I'd probably say, well, they're kind of boring. So does anybody see the other ones, BBC, the NPR? You're like, yeah, they're all right. They're a little dull, but they report the facts. So anybody want to share that one of, yes, maybe a little boring or not extremely entertaining? It's really just fact-based. Any answers there? Okay. Well, I actually like these stations because I don't want to be keyed up every second of the day. And forgive me, I love this lady. I listen to her all the time. I couldn't tell you her name, probably because she doesn't scare me. I can tell you all these guys' names. They scare me, but she doesn't. And so these new stations don't use the inflammatory, scary, life's coming to get you. They really do just give more fact, kind of down the middle type of reporting. And so just be aware that your brain is reacting just when you saw those photos from that threat mode. So what do we do? All right, so now I freaked you out. You can't have lattes, you can't touch your phone, and we can't watch Fox News. All right, so what do we do? Well, we need to learn about resiliency. And you've heard that word many times, but resiliency is really the ability to bounce back crisis, trauma, failure, difficult situations. And in order to be resilient, you have to use a different part of the brain. And so instead of leading here with that limbic system of feeling anxious and stressed and responding that way, we resilient people, and if you look at people who are resilient, it's not just a genetic thing, it's actually practicing certain things to help you be resilient. And so finding a purpose in life, showing empathy for others and compassion, having focus, so that's that mindfulness of pay attention to now. So when my daughter comes and talks to me and she says, Mom, I want to talk to you, this thing, it's gone. Talk to me, honey. Let's be in the moment. And those are things that help you be resilient because you're using this part of the brain right here. Okay, you're using this here. And so there's 4 actual chemicals that your body produces to make you feel happy. The first is dopamine, of which I've talked to you about, where you get that hit. It's actually a good thing. It's a motivator, neurotransmitter. It gets you excited, it pushes you towards a goal, your goal. And I got to admit, when I was making this PowerPoint, I got so excited to go out to Starbucks to get a peppermint latte because I was thinking about it. And dopamine was like, come on, you should go get one. You've worked hard today. You should go get one. But I didn't. And so, we realized dopamine's good, but we can't be overdoing dopamine. We have these other ones like oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins that also help us feel good. And so you need these a little bit more than just the dopamine hits. So although dopamine is good, it's actually aligned with helping us stay alert It's associated with movement, pleasure, of course, and then it's also a motivator. So it is a good one. I don't want to knock it too much, but we can get hooked on wanting things that taste good, and we're drawn to those foods and things, and video game playing, and binging Netflix too much because of those hits of dopamine, but it always doesn't help us. But the next big one is oxytocin, and this is the bonding one. This is the one that when you're out there walking with your honey, holding hands, hanging out with your family and connecting, it's that touching, it's the hug, feel good drug, so to speak, that parents and new mothers feel with their babies. That one is a longer lasting one, and it's actually connected to societies being closer and helping one another. It's the helping drug. So when I help you and you help me, we build oxytocin, and we bond, and we feel closer and more willing to help each other. Then we've got serotonin. Serotonin is linked with many things. It's a neurotransmitter that's linked to mood. It's linked to your sleep, okay? And it's the feelings of self-worth, self-confidence, that you feel good about who you are. And so serotonin is actually produced when you show signs of gratitude. So if you can journal and write down the things you're grateful for, if you can wake up every morning and before you get out of bed, you just say, okay, here's 3 things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful I got my wonderful kids, and whatever you come up with. Or maybe it's prayer, right? Where you say your prayers at night and what you're grateful for. But it actually produces serotonin. And then finally, excuse me, we've got the endorphins. And the endorphins are really, they're released as a response to acute pain. And so when you go out and exercise and you go to the gym, you go for a long run, you do something physical like yard work, your body produces endorphins, and they really act like a morphine for your body, where you get this euphoric, just relaxing feeling. And you know what I mean? When you've done some hard work, I love the landscape, and I'm out all the time, and my family sometimes are like, well, where'd mom go? I've been in the yard for 4 hours. But I feel so like a happy, relaxed when I'm done because of those endorphins. So start to find things, and those lattes aren't bad. You could treat yourself, that's great. Just don't do it every day. But start to find ways here, like getting better sleep, to promote that serotonin. Find purpose in activities. And I think people did that when the pandemic hit, because they were like, I don't know what we should do. And they started doing their yards and building decks and painting their houses, because it gave you a sense of purpose. But all of these things, even laughing. And so if you can't physically be with somebody, just to be on the phone or Zoom or call your best friend, and you're miles away, and you laugh and laugh and laugh, that produces endorphins. Like just even thinking about something funny, when you get a funny little gift or something, it makes you laugh. Those are endorphins. So go out there and find ways that you can produce the other happy chemicals that can help you get through this time. The next thing, you got to start to shut stuff off. We tend to let our jobs, email, it's great and it's evil. We tend to let those things just rule us. And so start to realize that addiction to that novelty of the phone, and it's also part threat, especially if it's work related, that if I don't answer this email, if I don't get back to my boss, if I don't, my threat mode is going off. It's very hard to go to sleep after that. It's very hard to shut down, because you've spiked your adrenaline, you spiked your cortisol, and it takes a while for that stuff to calm down. So set limits. No phones after 8. Don't be checking them. Don't be playing on them. You're done. Okay. No emailing after 8, especially if it's work related. Just stop. Turn on the do not disturb, so that you're not getting any buzzes, rings, dings, bells, that kind of stuff. You respond to those. And so I was just talking to my mom before I got on the phone here, and I said, I know you guys get mad at me, but I turn my phone off. I keep it on silent most of the times. I don't have the alerts and stuff going off, because I get too triggered by it. So when I'm working on a speech, or I'm in the zone, and I don't want to hear the dings and the buzzes and the stuff. And yes, sometimes I miss some things, and I do miss a few calls, and my husband gets mad. I was trying to reach you. But in the grand scheme of things, if I've got a stressful week or day, having those added sounds and notifications are not helping you. Every one of those spikes either that threat response or spikes your desire for that dopamine if you're like, oh, and then you can't stop texting and you're going and going for a long time. So break away from that. Here's another one. I want you to watch the news. Cut back on it, okay? Because you can get sucked into it. But this is actually I found this online called media bias. And you can actually see which of your favorite stations here line up with more left-leaning, more right-leaning, or down the center. And so you've got CNN and BuzzFeed and the MSNBC, they lean towards the left. And then we've got Fox and Newsmax and the New York Post, and they lean more towards the right. Remember I said those boring ones, the BBC, NPR, they're pretty much down the middle. And that will help bring down some of your watching the news and then, texting you, oh my gosh, did you hear this? What did Trump say today? No way. Got to kind of take a break from that stuff. So mix up your news, okay? Hop around. If you watch one channel, go watch the other one. But these are actually very good. They just give you the facts. And again, if you called in today, you're probably trying to find ways to reduce the stress levels in your life. And what you expose yourself to will affect how you feel. And so finally, I want to mention something that often feels like a touchy-feely topic, but it's a big deal. And it's kindness. And so often when we deal with, especially if you actually have anxiety and depression, they're very inward facing issues. You notice how you feel, you notice your heart rate, you notice I'm sweating, you notice, oh God, I feel afraid, it's about you. But one of the ways to get over that is to look out and make it about them. Start looking in your neighborhood, your community, for others that you can help. And so I love this for the Rotary, that it's the motto is service above self. And we've got Rotary clubs everywhere where they go out and do the nicest things of food drives and finding beds for children in Savannah who don't have beds. They do good deeds, and they're business people and, parents, and they bring their kids to help, but find something outside of your world to go do and help with. Second Harvest, you see these pictures of people lined up looking for food. We need help with that. And if you can't physically go, you can write a check and at least donate that way. But that active giving actually increases those good neurotransmitters and hormones that I told you about. It increases oxytocin, it increases serotonin and endorphins. So give yourself something else outside of your crazy world to look at. And it's funny how when you give to them, yes, they receive, but you get such a profound effect, that it helps you physiologically feel better. Because not only do you get those things, but you also reduce your cortisol levels, your anxiety levels, depression, and even physical pain are reduced when we are kind and when we do things for others. So in closing, if you walk away with something today, resiliency is about finding purpose and connecting with others. That's the big key takeaway. It moves you from the reactive brain to the logical part, and where you can think much more clear, you can connect to the others, and it's not black versus white, it's not Republican versus Democrat, it's us as a community, and it brings down all that stress. The next thing is, watch those external stressors, what you watch on TV, how much you use your phone, and even the little snackies and things you do to make yourself feel better, then you feel guilty afterwards. Control those. And then finally, practice more acts of kindness. Just do something good for someone else. It doesn't have to be profound, just little things that actually help you feel better. And thank you so much for your time today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you would like, or some of you know, I write for the Savannah Morning News. I have a column in the business section called Finish Line. I talk about stress, mostly work-related stress stuff. Or you can send me an email if you've got any questions, or you can follow me on Twitter, and I would be glad to help you guys. I hope you got something out of it. You got any questions or feedback, comments? Oh, I like some of these comments. Okay, we've got a gratitude journal just begun. Those are really good. I highly recommend to write down the gratitude thing, because if you can get in that tunnel zone of woe is me, my life is so bad, and then if you start writing down what you're grateful for, you realize you have a lot of good things, even if it's just the basics of a roof over your head. How many people in the world don't even have that? You know, it helps you put things in perspective.
Yeah, I found myself when I was freelancing, I would roll over and the first thing I would do in the morning would be grab my phone, and immediately I would just like, I would start working and I would feel stressed because I had like so many clients to keep on top of things, and I wasn't like taking time to decompress. And instead it was more, you know, or start my morning off right. And I would find myself, it would set the tone for the entire day. Be
Yeah,
in panic mode all day.
absolutely. It does. You just spike your cortisol, and then you ride off of that adrenaline, and yeah, you go all day. And so you try to fix that. And that's why we lean towards the coffees and the fast foods and the stuff, but we're not fulfilling ourselves really at a deeper level. And you know, back to the sports thing, like I said, we used to teach athletes, and think about it. It doesn't matter what sport. There's a time to play, like play the game. There's a time to practice, and then there's a time to recover. And that recovery time is just as essential as the training time and the diet and the, you know, game time, because you have to have time to let the body physically and mentally recover. And so you don't just work out 19 hours a day in the gym. You put in your 2 hours and that's it. And then we go, you know, I work with swimmers, and you swim, you work out, and that's it. And you go to bed, and you have to have that downtime. And the rest of us don't think that applies to us. But the fitness world, the sports world is $1 billion industry. I mean, they figured it out. So that recovery and downtime is huge. And so you all have to do those things as well. If you want to be good at whatever it is you do, you got to bake in that break time. And just that is it. You know, my husband was a former professional swimmer. And when it was 9 o'clock at night, he's like, I'm going to bed. I have to have my sleep to be able to perform well. And it was just known that, okay, he's got to get his rest. So you all need to do the same kind of thing.